lately I have been watching the BBC documentary series Claimed and Shamed, which talks about false and fraudulent insurance claims. It's a bit of a repetitive programme, but one of the things that they keep mentioning is knowing that some of the claims, in particular things like jewellery, so rings, watches, and bracelets, are actual fraudulent claims, is using the metadata of the photographs that the claimants send them. And they can see that the photograph has been taken after the item has been reported as lost or stolen. This led me to thinking I haven't really made a video talking about metadata, and it's really simple. Metadata sounds more complicated than it is. It is just simply the settings information. So what settings you have used to take the photograph that information is attached to. For me, if you go, and it doesn't matter where it is, whether it's in a folder, if you certainly for my laptop, you double click the photograph, it'll bring it up in the viewer. And to look at the basic metadata, because there are two ways to look at the metadata, at least that I've found. If you bring it up into viewer mode, so double click on it and then right click, it gives up this sub menu, and then at the bottom it says file information. So if I click on that, on the left hand side it will come up with some very basic metadata. It will come up the file name, the date taken, which is Tuesday the 6th of November, and the time 15:31. It also gives a little bit of information, including the settings that I've used on the camera, which is 1/40th of a second shutter speed, f5.6 and 50mm focal length, ISO 3200, and it even has the device ILCE-7M3, which is obviously the code for the Sony a7 III. This picture was just of the WrestleCrate UK WrestleCrate champions, just small vinyl dolls that they've included in their crates this year. Just me mucking about with an adapter that I actually was checking out, that I bought, a photodiox adapter. I might do a video on that once I've got the opportunity to go out and use a couple of the lenses with that adapter. So that's one of the simple ways of doing it. There is a more advanced way. I'm looking at slightly more advanced metadata, or settings information. It's not really that difficult or that complicated. If you right click when you've highlighted a photograph, it will come up this sub menu, and at the bottom again, this time it says properties. If you click on that, it will come up with this tab, and I'll move it to the center so you can see it. This generally just gives a bit more simple information. If you go to the third tab along, where it says details, if you click on that where it says details, you get a little bit more advanced information. Now I will say I haven't found a way to access it. I don't know whether it's possible to access some more advanced information, such as which focal setting you were in, whether it be center focus, wide focus, or zone focus, and whether you're in continuous autofocus or whatever. I don't believe you can access that information unless I'm wrong, but this gives some of the more slightly advanced information. See origin here, and it has my name twice, once at the top of this section and again at the bottom for author and copyright. Most digital cameras you can at least put your name or a name in once or twice for the a7 III, and I think a lot of the newer generation cameras you can do it twice, or you're asked to do it twice if you wish to. I think in years gone by, if a professional photographer, you used to have to, at least for some companies, you'd be asked when it comes to the copyright to put in the company name that you're working for, but also I do not work for anybody, so I input the author and copyright as my own name. And again, it gives you a little bit of information here, ILCE-7M3, Sony a7 III, and that V2.00, just in case anybody is wondering, is the firmware, which is I believe the latest firmware available for the Sony a7 III, and that really includes that, just what firmware version it is. Now this next bit, I don't really use Unreal. I'm not hugely technologically minded. I'm not really, you know, really smart. And so this next part, I'm not sure whether, probably it could be mined for information and used by more technologically advanced minds, whether amateur or professional photographers than myself. It gives dimensions, pixel width and height, the resolution, vertical and horizontal, and the bit depth. I was thinking perhaps maybe, I don't know whether it's possible, whether more professional and again more technologically minded amateur and professional photographers may use this when it comes to the different picture profiles, picture effects, and even perhaps things like the differences between landscape and portraits photography. You see all sorts of settings on modern day cameras, different color effects. Retain one of the primary colors as well that you get on A73. I could take a photograph and only keep yellow or green or blue. I think there's 3 or 4 colors that I can choose. If they're in the picture, they will retain, and the rest is black and white, which is amazing effects that you can do. But again, it's more information. And again, it's very simple. The metadata sounds more complicated than it is, and I know I'm repeating myself a little bit in that, but it just gives you the information that you use. Sony A7 III, again f5.6 down to ISO 3200, 50mm focal length, and just basically the same information that is actually date created, date modified. Which I can't remember that I said it, but date modified is always seems to be the date that the photograph was originally taken, which surprised me. I thought it would be date created, but for however it works, I don't know. But date modified seems to be really a lot of the quite often it's the date that the photograph was originally taken. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because I've always intended, and I've never really got around to it. It's one of the other things I've never really taken the time or really to do, because I can't really say I've never really had the time to do, but I've just never done it. Is I've always thought, if I was to go to somewhere, it would be a wrestling event, or just go or a particular event, or just simply go out wandering, taking photographs. I always thought in my mind, if I get some really good results using particular settings, that I keep a couple of sample images, so that the next time or a similar location or an event, I can perhaps use similar settings. And I've never really done that. Although I do have a lot of photographs backed up on my hard drive, so I may possibly, and I probably do, have more of this information than I realise. Because a lot of times I do actually keep. A few of the times I have kept like the original files, so I probably do have a lot more of that information than I realise. This is all this information, this metadata comes in very handy again for, and I know obviously conditions change throughout the year. I mean, it's really dark now, early in the evening, and a couple of weeks ago at this time it was only kind of starting to get dark as I record this. So obviously conditions change. So, but these settings, this information is really handy. Again, you can maybe use similar settings next time you're at the same place, or even just it gives you a starting point of your settings. You think, well, 1/40th of a second worked last time, but it's not working this time, and then you can see from the results. I've talked about chimping in a previous video, but even if you're looking, you're kind of setting up, you're taking test images, you can see, right, 40th doesn't work, it's too slow or it's too fast or whatever. Whatever it is, the situation you're in, and you can start from these settings that you kept. So I've always intended to keep sample images, but never have done so. And it also actually works in editing. So if you have used these settings and they're not quite right, then you can see. You can maybe use these settings to change your exposure, your brightness, your contrast in Lightroom or Photoshop when you're editing to get the results you actually wanted to get, if that's possible. So I thought I'd just make a quick video. I will say very quickly before I end this video, if you do upload photographs to social media, Facebook, Twitter, I did make a previous video talking about downloading a complete Facebook album. If you do that though, a lot of this information here, the settings information, tends to disappear. It is not retained. So if you upload, say, and I'm not going to keep these images because they're just test images mucking around, but if I was to upload these to Facebook and then download them, a lot of this information will disappear. So I can't go back and say, well, I really like that photograph that I put up on Facebook. I'll download it and then see what settings that I used for that, because I want to kind of recapture that photograph, or maybe change the composition of it that I don't really want to crop. A lot of this information will sadly disappear. So if you do upload it to social media and then download it again, a lot of this information will sadly disappear. But again, and I know I'm repeating myself yet again, but just to end this video, metadata sounds more complicated and more advanced than it actually is. But metadata is only really simply the setting information that you used to create that particular photograph. It is really not very complicated, but it can be really handy.